The independent forensic report landed like a thunderclap across two warring dynasties. Liam Spencer had never undergone a real brain operation. Every stitch, every drop of synthetic blood, every dramatic close-up of scalp and sequins in that ostentatious operating theater had been calculated deception. A sham dead tree surgery in which Grace Buckingham, with trembling hands and hidden desperation, had merely sliced into Liam's scalp and then stitched him back up to fool the cameras and the world. As the coroner's findings painstakingly detailed, the craniotomy never breached bone, no tumor was removed, and no genuine neurosurgical instruments ever threatened or healed his brain. The forensic experts, armed with microscopic photographs and surgical logs obtained from the hospital archive, showed beyond dispute that Grace's intricate masquerade had been designed to manufacture Liam's illness, to ensnare the Spencer family in a grief-ridden spectacle, and to elevate her own wounded reputation as a savior physician. When the report was delivered in a hushed courtroom address, televised live, with steely cameras trained on every flip of the experts' pages, the fallout was immediate and unforgiving. In the hush that followed that landmark declaration, Liam's steel-blue eyes, once alight with vindicated relief, dulled to ashen glass. The revelation that he had been starved of truth, forced by blood and betrayal into agonies of pain and fear that never needed to be, cracked his spirit. The son who had endured fake diagnostics, emotional manipulation, and the public spectacle of a life-or-death drama now collapsed under the weight of the lie. He retreated into solitude, haunted by every phantom headache, every tearful call for mercy that had been nothing more than Grace's grand illusion. As guilt and shame conspired against him, he reached for the one solace he believed real, the painkillers that had been administered as part of the surgical charade. What began as prescription-only pills to manage post-operative discomfort mutated into a craving for escape. Behind closed doors of Liam's mansion, the bottles multiplied. He found in the narcotics a transient silence that eluded him in waking hours. Bill Spencer, who had engineered the sting operation to trap Grace and Reese Buckingham in the public operating theater, watched in horror as his triumph curdled into tragedy. He had intended to free Liam from manipulation by exposing the fraud. Instead, his son was slipping into the darkest clutch of depression and chemical dependency. Each empty pill blister he discovered in Liam's carefully hidden cache shattered him anew. In their once statuesque home, hallways that had echoed with family laughter now absorbed quiet sobs and the clink of glass as Liam paced his private study. The report's pages crumpled in his fist. Brooke, tormented by maternal guilt, stayed by Liam's bedside in shifts, coaxing him to drink water, to breathe, to remember the boy who once dreamed of a future beyond the headlines. But the real reckoning belonged to Bill. In the sterile light of an empty boardroom, he confronted his own decisions, years of shielding his son from failure, of intervening too forcefully, of forging alliances and spinning webs of control for Liam's good. His overprotectiveness, once his proudest badge as patriarch, now loomed as the silent architect of his son's hollow suffering. When Liam entered rehab, admitting himself under his own name at last, it was a confession not only of addiction but of fracturing faith. The world watched as the proud heir of Spencer Publications, who once commanded boardrooms and headlines, checked into a sober living facility to learn how to cope with real pain and real healing. Cameras flashed as he delivered a raw, unvarnished statement. I trusted those who cut into me. I trusted my father's crusade to expose the truth. I never knew how to trust myself. Each word trembled with the weight of a son's broken trust, a man's shattered identity. In the quiet moments between therapy sessions, Liam confronted the deception of his mother, the artifice of his staged surgeries, and the crushing reality of relinquishing control, both his own and that of the father who tried to protect him. Bill Spencer, stripped of patriarchal armor, visited Liam in the rehab center's garden pavilion. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over manicured hedges as father and son faced each other across a simple wooden bench. The air was thick with unsaid apologies. Bill reached out to grasp Liam's forearm, feeling the tremor of withdrawal and bewilderment. "I thought I was saving you," Bill confessed, his voice ragged. "I thought I could keep you safe from every lie and every pain. I never stopped to ask if I was creating more harm." Liam, gaunt but clear-eyed, gave a small, sad nod. "Protection isn't control," he whispered. "You can't shield me from every mistake or every heartbreak. Sometimes the worst wounds come from keeping the truth from those we love." As Mr. Spencer grappled with the truth of his own failures, the broader world reeled from the scandal's coda. The fashion and media empires that had clashed over Liam's illness now faced a new narrative. The tragedy of a young man betrayed by those he trusted most, driven to the brink by a phantom surgery and a father's ironclad crusade. Social media erupted with calls for accountability not just for medical malpractice, but for the cultural obsession with control and too perfect facades. Commentators debated the ethics of celebrity in crisis, the corrosive power of public sympathy, and the fine line between protection and domination. Meanwhile, through the sliding glass doors of the rehab center, Liam began to rebuild step by painful step, his capacity to feel real pain, to embrace real healing, and to reclaim real truth. In the fragile dawn of Liam's recovery journey, Bill vowed to stand beside him, not as a commander or protector, but as a fellow traveler in humility. The father and son who had once fought wars of deception and exposure now faced a more intimate battlefield. The terrain of honesty, vulnerability, and the knowledge that to truly love someone means to let them face their own storms. And as the Spencer name, once synonymous with power and prestige, reshaped itself around this new creed of truth and healing, one thing became clear: sometimes the most dramatic revelations are not those staged for cameras, but those that crack open the heart and demand the courage to say, "I was wrong, and I need help." In that admission lay the truest form of victory. A victory not of headlines or fortunes, but of two wounded souls learning to trust again. Hope Logan stood behind the curtain of the Grand Forester Runway Hall, heart pounding like a war drum as the last notes of the string quartet faded and the house lights dimmed. She had poured every ounce of passion, every sleepless night, and every ounce of her reputation into this show. Her declaration to the fashion world that Forester creations still mattered, that its legacy of innovation and elegance lived on even as whispers of decline rattled its foundations. Weeks earlier, she had rallied the design team around a collection inspired by the purity of light and form: silken gowns in alabaster and dove gray, sculpted coats with geometric paneling, delicate lace and patterns that mimicked the shimmer of dawn. This would be her moment to rescue the brand from the edge of irrelevance, to prove that Forester Creations could still dictate trends rather than chase them. The invitations had gone out to every major editor, every high-profile blogger, every socialite with followers to spare. The press releases trumpeted Hope's vision of resilience through beauty, a rallying cry for an industry battered by scandal and shifting tastes. Now, as she stepped onto the stage in a tailored ivory suit, her hair swept into an elegant updo, her makeup flawless, she summoned a confident smile for the audience seated before her, the industry's most influential gatekeepers, their cameras trained like hawks on the runway, their verdicts already etched in their furrowed brows. The first model glided out in a floor-skimming gown of whisper-light chiffon, the fabric catching the soft glow of the spotlights like morning mist. Gasps of approval rippled through the crowd as each subsequent silhouette emerged: a silk sheath with angular cutouts, a wool crepe pantsuit cinched at the waist with a sculptural belt, a tulle ball gown accented with metallic filigree that seemed to float on air. Hope's designs invoked both strength and vulnerability, a synergy of contrasts that defined the very soul of Forrester Creations. As the final model took her bow beneath the Forrester emblem projected on the back wall, Hope allowed herself a moment of triumph until the lights flickered, the music screeched to a halt, and a hush fell over the runway. A figure strode onto the catwalk with purpose, her stiletto heels clicking like a judge's gavel. Steffi Forrester, Hope's sister-in-law and fiercest rival, wore a blood-red sheath that hugged her curves, her blonde hair cascading like a banner of defiance. Reporters murmured in confusion as Steffi flashed a defiant smile and raised a microphone to her lips. "Ladies and gentlemen, forgive the interruption," Steffi began, her voice carrying easily down the hall. "But before you applaud these dresses, you deserve the truth." With that, she produced from her designer clutch a stack of glossy photographs and design sketches, side-by-side comparisons of Hope's new collection and original Forrester archive blueprints, some dating back decades. The audience gasped as Steffi stepped forward, her gaze sweeping the editors and influencers who had come to see innovation, not imitation. "I know how desperate we all are to see Forrester Creations survive," she said, voice dripping with false sympathy. "But desperation is no excuse for theft. These designs," she gestured to the model standing frozen beside her, "are nothing more than copycats of our greatest hits." The morning mist gown appears in the 1998 spring archives, the geometric cutouts in our 2005 Architectural Lines collection, and that metallic filigree ball gown is nearly identical to our 2011 electric lace design. She paused as gasps rippled through the press pit. "Hope Logan, I admire your passion, but passion doesn't give you ownership of other people's creativity. You've sold a lie tonight." Flashes erupted as photographers seized the moment, Steffi's triumphant smirk and Hope's stunned expression immortalized in digital freeze frames. Chaos surged through the hall like a tidal wave. Hope's carefully choreographed finale unraveled in real time as attendees clamored for a closer look at Steffi's evidence. Editors whispered of lawsuits, influencers tweeted accusations of brand sabotage and intellectual theft. Hope stood frozen, the ivory suit suddenly too tight, her blood pounding in her ears. The models tried to shuffle back down the runway, but Steffi blocked their path with a swift motion of her hand. "These gowns belong in a museum," she declared, not on a runway masquerading as something new. As the tension ratcheted to a fever pitch, Hope lunged forward, her voice cracking. "This is insane, Steffi. Stop this right now." But Steffi merely laughed, a cold, mirthless sound that echoed through the vaulted ceiling. "Oh, honey, I'm just getting started." With that, she advanced on the nearest model, tugged at the chiffon skirt, and ripped it free in one brutal motion. The audience recoiled as the gown fluttered to the ground, and the model's gasp echoed like a gunshot. Hope cried out and launched herself toward her sister-in-law, but Steffi spun away, her manicured nails snagging the waist of another dress. Fabric tore, studs scattered. A second model shrieked as her lace sleeves were shredded in Steffi's wake. Security guards and assistants flooded the stage, but the scene had already spilled into the audience. Editors rose from their seats, some brandishing notebooks, others capturing the spectacle on their phones. The runway lights danced across shredded tulle, strewn silk, and designer handbags abandoned in the scramble. Hope and Steffi grappled in the center of the wreckage, each woman clawing at the other's garments and reputation. Steffi's voice sliced through the chaos. "Your designs are bankrupt, Hope." "Always were." Hope snarled back, "I built this moment, and you're going to destroy it." Around them the foray of ripped fabric piled like casualties of war, and the crowd leaned in, filming every flash of anger, every tear of lace. Within seconds, social media feeds exploded. #ForresterFail trended globally, alongside clips of a red-hot reality far more gripping than any runway walk. Livestream after livestream flickered with shaky footage of the fight, viewers voting on who would emerge victorious in this battle of style and spite. By the time the last of the security team hauled Steffi off the stage in handcuffs, swiftly relabeled "Designer Gone Rogue" by onlookers, the damage was irreparable. Hope, trembling and drenched in sweat, stood amid the carnage of ruined gowns and broken dreams. The audience had dispersed, leaving behind a litter of discarded programs and crushed champagne flutes. Editors whispered tales of withdrawn sponsorships, rumors of canceled orders, and retreating investors. Designers who had planned collaborations with Forrester were now retreating, their legal teams scrambling to distance them from the scandal. Forrester Creations stock tickers on Wall Street flickered red, a downward spiral in real time. In the halls outside the runway, Brooke Logan met Hope's dazed gaze, tears in her own eyes. "What have we done?" she whispered. Hope could only shake her head as the thunder of retribution rolled in, calls from lawyers, angry pleas from retailers, merciless headlines branding the brand as impotent, unscrupulous, and on the brink of collapse. That night, under the cold glow of her office's LED lights, Hope stared at her phone as it flooded with notifications, viral videos, seething comments, petitions to boycott Forrester Creations. She realized, with a sinking pit in her stomach, that her dream to save the brand had been eclipsed by a spectacle of disgrace. The next morning's headlines would not celebrate resilience through beauty. They would feast on betrayal, violence, and the fall of an empire. And as she scrolled through the unrelenting tide of digital judgment, Hope understood the cruel irony. Sometimes the fiercest battle for survival is fought not on the runway, but in the public's unforgiving gaze. In that moment, surrounded by silence and the echo of shredded gowns, she vowed to fight back, but the path to redemption would be longer, darker, and more treacherous than any catwalk she had ever walked.
Oh.